Yeah, you got to budget to snacks and dinner tags. And, oh my goodness.
Ready? Nick?
I'm live. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon. We're glad that everyone is here this afternoon for our Lost Skills. This is the last one of this year. We will be starting again next year, hopefully. We do have a planning committee this week, so I don't have a whole lot of information for you yet, but we will be, we plan on doing it next year too. And so today we have Nicholas Vint doing our program on entertaining friends. And we're just so glad that each one of you came. We can all learn more about entertaining well, I guess. And so first of all, I'd like to have a word of prayer and ask the Lord to bless Nick in his presentation. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you so much for another Lost Skills. We thank you for Nick, who is presenting this afternoon. Lord, I know that entertaining friends is important. Being social, being able to share with people. And I just pray that we will be able to learn more about how to do that for your honor and your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, I am very happy to be here. I have been a college professor at different places. I love being up front. It's just, there's a little bit of a thrill about it. I like connecting with people. I like sharing what I have. And so I'm going to get right into it. So I hope you've had a chance to get a handout. I used AI to summarize my notes because we'll be going through a ton of information, and I don't want you to have to wear a pencil out writing it all down. So one of my hobbies is entertaining friends. And I've always liked being social, but sometime in college, I realized that I could either be alone or I could just like watch something on TV, the network, whatever. But that was just so shallow compared to sharing experiences with people in real life. So I remember asking my physics professor, who was close to 3 times my age, over 3 times my age. And here's his advice. Nick, if you have trouble inviting people to a party, try giving it a theme. So thanks to the late Dr. Hefferlin, that's one little topic that has worked well. Here is the definition of entertaining from a dictionary. Receiving with hospitality, receiving and treating with provisions and accommodations, keeping or cherishing with favor, engaging the attention, or amusing. So there's a bunch of ways you can use the word. And the way that I'm going to use the word, my functional definition, is throwing a party. If I'm entertaining friends, I'm going to invite my friends over, and we're going to have a party. The expectation is that we'll get to know each other, we'll have fun in the process. And so I want to dispel a myth. And right off the bat, the myth is that parties are worldly places where people act out intemperance. Okay, there's this idea out there like, oh, wow, good party, man, and I'm not going to tell mom about it. So there's that idea of that type of party where I want to replace that with the fact that Jesus partied, and I would think had more fun than those worldly exercises of intemperance. So without getting the Bible out, you know these stories. There's the wedding at Cana, where Jesus worked a miracle so the party could continue. There's the prodigal son's return banquet, and this is where the father, who was an analogy for God, celebrated his son's return by killing the fatted calf and throwing down a feast. There was the Feast of Tabernacles, which was a yearly community feast. Everyone would get together with their tents, and they'd party for a week, celebrating. Then there was the feast at Simon's house, where Jesus had his feet washed with the lady who used perfume, and it's a beautiful story in John. And Judas is like, that perfume is too expensive. You should have sold it. But this was a feast that Simon was throwing for Jesus. And finally, there was the feast that Matthew threw, and Jesus got flack. What are you doing, hanging out with tax collectors and lowlifes and sinners? And so Jesus got flack. But I think that Jesus knew that partying is a great force for good. So this is a question to the audience, and I expect some brainstorming. There's no wrong answers in brainstorming. Based on the parties that I told, and there's some I probably forgot, what are some of the purposes that these parties served? And while you're thinking about it, shout out to my friend Theodore Europe. And what are some of the purposes these parties served? There's no wrong answer.
Getting acquainted.
Getting acquainted, yes. Someone from the back. Someone from the front.
I was going to say fun. To have
Fun. Absolutely, to have fun.
You can have a lot of interaction, then I'll need the mic on these people.
Should I?
Ask a lot of questions. I had that live.
Okay. I'm not going to have a lot of interaction. I'll repeat their answer.
Okay.
So, to have fun, what was the other one?
Get acquainted.
Get acquainted. Yeah. To celebrate an event. Yeah. Something fancy happened, or maybe build community like the yearly feast. We're not just killing sacrifices or doing the holy stuff. We are having fun. There's an interesting chapter in Leviticus which says if you live too far away from the temple, sell your tithe and what you would have taken and throw a party. And it enumerates the sort of things you should do at the party, which is rather interesting. I think it's Leviticus 22. Not exactly sure. So with this, I'm going to have a little opening prayer. God in heaven, please help us to learn how to throw better parties for your kingdom. Amen. So now we're getting to a quick overview. And these are 9 segments that are all throughout the outline that you have. We're going to talk about a theme, planning the party, the venue, invitations, guests, food, preparation, the early party. It's a very important phase of the party. Some people don't want to be early. They want to be fashionably late. And finally, games, party games, and unabashed commercial. After this, we're going to have a little game night here. You're welcome to stay. If you're busy, no worries. We're going to try out one of the games that that we'll talk about towards the end. There's a couple really easy, quick crowd mixers. Okay, so as my physics professor told me, parties get better traction with your guests if you have a theme. So some good themes have the action embedded in the name. For instance, an ice cream pint party. I think everyone knows that you're supposed to bring a pint of ice cream to the ice cream pint party. And this is a great thing. Salsa bar. Want to know what's happening at the salsa bar? No guessing here. Starbecue. So this is a party I threw 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a barbecue picnic that was on a meteorite night, and we were holding it outside. So it was a starbecue, and the lights, the shooting stars were a little late, a little lame, but we had fun at our party anyway. And it actually did a good job. Like, what's a starbecue? And it would get people talking about conversation. Story time. I threw a really good party in Loma Linda where the purpose of the party was telling stories. And I made that one work by creating a poster board, and then I had story ideas, and I had these ideas. I kind of did a self-laminating job with packing tape, and then I put little Velcro bits on the back. So you had to pull this token off the board. You could hear a rip sound as the Velcro disengaged. And most people, there's about 60 people at the one house that came, and most people did not want to tell the story. But when the segment of unabashed extroverts who really wanted to tell the story, when they saw there was scarcity power, like, what? There's only like 10 story tokens? They were like sharks, like, oh, I'll take that one, and another one took that one. And so adding scarcity really made the difference in that one. So many of these parties, if you put just a little bit of prep into them, like the scarcity bulletin board. It took me maybe 2 hours to make with all the, it makes the world of difference. Doesn't have to be elaborate, but just a little thought into it can really make it be a memorable event. A couple other ideas: costume party or masquerade. Those are always fun. Wild West theme, you can do all sorts of stuff. You can have a game night. This is a common one I like to throw. A sport. So you have a party around a sport. We're going to play foosball or soccer, and everyone knows that is why you're coming. So if you come to the party, you shouldn't be upset when we start to play foosball or soccer, because that was the purpose of the party. Baby shower, mission story, vespers, spring picnic, bonfire, birthday, anniversary. There's all these kind of more stereotypical parties. These are great reasons to have a party. In fact, I don't even think you need a reason to have a party. I think that if people don't have anything to do after church and they haven't even prepared food, they should grab their favorite boxed whatever, ramen, mac and cheese, prepackaged salad, and take it to someone's house and eat their last-minute food together. That's a great reason to have a party. So, unlike those last-minute parties, the things that I'm focusing on here are going to have a smidge more planning. And one of the things I want to emphasize is the planning team. Now, I have done some of these larger parties by myself, and I will tell you it was very stressful. I personally have a medium-high bar for how things should go, and when I'm trying to get more chairs out and get a new trash bag and then getting the late person their food lined up on the line and greeting someone, I see the person in the corner. I go from stress to overwhelm, which is when your brain kind of shuts down. Not good. So after that one or two difficult party, I try to get a planning team. And I recommend choosing a friend or two that you really like. And it's good to have clearly defined roles in your planning team. So one of the roles is host or logistics. Their role is to engage with whatever environment it is so that they know where all the stuff is and they can outline all the important things so that you don't have any snags in the flow of the evening. Another role is food prep or food coordinator. It can be the host, but it's better if it's someone else. The food coordinator maybe has talked to people to get the guests to bring some food ahead of time. They're outlining the flow of the potluck style line. The final role, which is it's important. It separates the okay events from the really good events. And this is to have someone who's the greeter or the conversation starter or the MC or in charge of the activities or some combination of those. Because no one likes to feel awkward. No one wants to just kind of be there and, it's just terrible. Here's a little story. I'm teaching a class about studying, and my very first class, I selected some settings on Zoom. Not quite a party, but we'll roll with it. And I said, let's have this be an interactive event. We'll have people's cameras default to on. So, one guy was fine with it. He kept his camera on. Another girl, I saw her picture for less than 1 second. And there it was, lovely looking Asian girl, and all of a sudden she turned it off and never came back. So this is an example, a small little vignette of how when you make someone feel awkward, they react, and it's not always for the best. That snap judgment can color their perception of you for the rest of for a long time. I want to tell you a story. One thing. Choose a core team you enjoy. Don't invite your enemies or shirt-tail acquaintances to be your core team. And here's why. A friend of mine, Daniel, later I was the best man at his wedding, but before he got married, I said, Daniel, he asked me if I wanted to go see a hockey game. He loves hockey. I do not. But I love parties. So I said, Daniel, that's a great idea. Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where I was living, has a minor league hockey team. And the tickets are relatively inexpensive, $10 plus or minus, I don't remember. And I told him, I'm going to invite people from my church. So I invited about a dozen people. And I got 10 no's, 1 yes, and 1 maybe. Kind of low odds for people at my home church. Knoxville Church is a little bit bigger. It's not as comfy, cozy of a group that we are. But later, the yes called me back and said that something came up, I really should do something, and he didn't come. And the maybe didn't show up either. So guess what? My friend Daniel and I, we went to the hockey game, just the two of us. And even though it was a little disappointing, because I love my friend Daniel, and he loves hockey, and me, he drove up from Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is about 100 miles, to Knoxville, Tennessee, and we had a good time despite batting 0 out of 12. 0. Oh my goodness. Hopefully you guys can do better. But if you have a good friend who you can rely on, then even if it goes max bad, your evening won't be shot. Okay, some venues to think of. Home is probably the easiest venue, though some people, because they're sharing an apartment, don't have that option. Church is a great venue, especially if you have connections to the social committee. And the people in the church, and they say, oh yeah, Nick wants to throw a party. Sure, use the church, clean up afterwards, put away the chairs, you'll be fine. A hockey stadium, a restaurant, a park, any good public place where no one is going to feel weirded out. You don't want anyone to feel weirded out if you take them, down a long, long road, long dirt place to a cave in the middle of nowhere. Like, don't do that. A word about the invitation. Word of mouth is a great way to start a party. Some of the best parties happen right at the last minute. A few friends had a great afternoon, and they say, oh, let me go home and feed the cat, and we'll come and we'll hang out together. Those are great parties. But for the bigger events, you're going to want to be a little more systematic. So mail is great for large formal things like a wedding reception. You might get gifts if you mail out invitations. Email is better for older people like me who actually check email. Many of your generation do not check email. Texting is the way to go with people now because for better or worse, if you have someone's contact, you can buzz or ring their body wherever they are. And for better or worse, it's such a surefire method of communication that many people use it for planning parties, which I actually don't like, but I realize the universal effectiveness. So when I plan on text, I have the following figured out. The starting time, location, food or theme, and if they need to bring anything like maybe a chair, and if they can invite friends. That's important. Depending on the type of party, you may or may not want to open that option. So, and a very effective thing, if it's a larger party, is to not send out a large text, but to send a medium-sized text to a friend group. So if I know that all my Filipino friends already know each other, I'll send 6 texts to those people. If I know that my people from PMC or Pathfinders or whatever that group is, I'll send those people on a text, and I have 2 or 3 medium-sized group texts so that people don't feel their information is being spammed. However, once people agree to come, then I ask them if they would be willing to participate in the food. And I like to throw more parties than I'm able to host on my own. I'm not going to be hosting me feed you parties like every other month because it's just a lot for me to do. But if I can get buy-in from people, that serves multiple purposes. Defrays the expense, defrays the stress, defrays the work. And more importantly, if they've committed to food, they're more committed to coming. So let me tell you an interesting story. This is, I was a social coordinator at a certain graduate school in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I was a little overwhelmed, and the new leader for this group I told her, I says, I need to unplug. I'm working on a thesis. I'm just not doing the thesis. I've got to unplug from the event. But here's what I'll do. I will throw you the biggest Christmas party you've ever had. And then I've got to be gone for 1 month, 3 months, 5 months. I don't know how long. But don't ask me. Just the longer I veg, the happier I'll be when I come back. So she says, Nick, what do you need? I says, I need one volunteer from the student leader committee. And so one guy came up and he said, I don't know why you chose me. I'm not good at throwing parties. That was his opening statement when the three of us, the leader, myself, and this one other guy who was a student leader, that was his opening salvo or remark. And I said, Chris, no worries. If you're here and you're willing to do any reasonable thing that I ask, we will have a fabulous event. Okay, he said with a note of skepticism in his voice. So we sat down the meeting and I had a quick prayer. God in heaven, please help us to have a good party. Help us to strategize well. And I says, okay, now this is going to be a big party. This is going to be bigger than I can do. In fact, it's going to be bigger than you can do. In fact, it's so big that we've got to get help. So the first thing we're going to do, brainstorm every area of the party that is a self-contained little pocket. Okay, that's an easy first step. So I said, in brainstorming, there's no wrong answer. So we had a whiteboard, and we, the director of the little youth group, she was great. She had all the important adult stuff that just helped things flow. So she pulled out her little whiteboard, and we started brainstorming. Food, we need food. Great, write it down. Invitations, great, invitations. Music, and so we, like all these little parts to the party. So every little thing to the party that could be delegated to some person. This is what we wrote down. I says, okay, after we had a dozen or so items, now this is more than any of us can do. Like if I did half of these or a third of these, I would be overwhelmed. It is our job to delegate 100% of these. We're like the mastermind planning, and we can't do any of them. We've got to delegate 100% of these. However, I'm relying on your knowledge of the people in your friend group to choose appropriately. Do you know that your cousin loves music and has a stereo that he can bring? Put him on music. Do you know someone who just loves cooking and likes, put him on food? Not every job is created equal. We do not want the food person flaking out on us. But if the music person flakes out on us, that'll be okay. So we partitioned all of the dozen or so tips into each of us, and we all asked people. And I said, now listen, it's very important that we try to get someone else to do all of these for the following reason. When working with volunteers are flimsy and they're flaky, and it is a virtual guarantee that with a dozen or so tasks, someone's going to drop the ball. We are going to have to pick up the slack from some of these people who said yes and then flaked out on us. This is why we do not initially assign anything to ourselves. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. People flaked out. I ended up taking on the games role, the entertainment role myself. It's just kind of what I do. However, I got a new elementary school teacher who was 25, 26. He was new in element, but he moved to the area, and he was the MC. Such a hit. And I told him, I said, listen, I don't care like anything you do. Anything that you would feel comfortable doing, you're welcome to do. But if you could, involve as many people in the program as possible. Maybe a talent show, maybe some interactive games. I explained what I would be doing. And he decided to do a talent show, and the very first act was as follows. Do you know what a cutie is? Little citrus fruit? And when we got everyone quiet, he carefully, after 25 or 30 seconds, unpeeled the cutie so that he removed 100% of the peel in one piece. He says, this is my talent. And if you have a talent, come talk to me. We're going to be playing a couple of these other relay games, but we're going to have a talent show afterwards, and we need your help. So what did he just do? Feedback. With that example, what did he just do to the bar of the talent? He set the bar. He engaged the people, and the bar was kind of low. Whew. Poor college students who are stressed and worried and behind on everything and feeling like they're not talented because of whatever. Now, they too can do something. And they did, and it was great. Okay, so the point of this is to have a good planning team and delegate. All right, moving on to number 5. Guests. Now, the event size or your venue or your budget will dictate the amount of guests you can accommodate. So this is something to just think about. If you're having it at your house and you know that if it rains, you cannot have more than a dozen people inside, and you're not living in a very dry climate, you might want to limit your guest list. Okay. Here's just some considerations for the who or the what of your vibe. Do you want to have a seated party where everyone sits around one table and you only have so many plates of china, your lovely wedding set, and if you have 13 people, that will not work. You only have 12 place settings. If this is your constraint, plan accordingly. You may want an RSVP, which is French for s'il vous plaît, which means please reply if you're coming. Now, if you're playing a 6-player game, you might want to invite only 5 more people if you know they'll come. Then there's the party where all are welcome. And one little thing, there's a little bit of social calculus to be played. So inviting too many new people can lead to an awkward party. It really helps if there's some connections where you know you and she knows her, and when people arrive, they start talking to their friends. Then the new people will feel at ease because of the happy buzz of your party. Another tip, is there a divorced couple? Maybe don't invite both people, and maybe let them know that you're inviting one and not the other. I've done this a couple times. I've violated this a couple times. And in every situation, neither party comes. And not only that, I've just spread a bucket of cold water because they now know they're missing out on a party that they were invited to, and they're choosing to let their social barriers stop them, which is so sad. It's against all of the good reasons for planning a party in the first place. Guests. I had something else that's flipped in my mind. Food. Okay, this is a big one for the party, and you can do bring your own food party where everyone goes. So if everyone goes, gets takeout, and then comes back to do X, that actually works really well. And it works great for college students, it works great for professionals, because you don't have to worry about food. And then you have a conversation starter. Oh, what did you get? Oh, what did you get? And it's kind of fun to have a little icebreaker. However, most of my parties have food as a component. Not because I like cooking. I'm okay at cooking. But because people stay longer. I buy them with food. Small vignette. If you're planning a lunch meeting, which is a great way to get to know someone, you have now upgraded something they already have to do to a lunch date where you and the person can get to know each other and have a great meeting on top of lunch. Excellent idea. I've never had a bad lunch date. Anytime some person, guy or girl, asks me out to a lunch date, or I've asked someone out to a lunch date, we always have a good time. And I think our culture doesn't do intentional socializing enough. I think we should do it more. Okay, back to the food. If you're planning food, know that there are certain restrictions. Some people don't eat meat, some people don't eat gluten, some people don't eat dairy, and it's nice to maybe have an alternative, especially if you know that your friend has something intolerant. So, another piece of planning food is your time, energy, budget. For instance, Thanksgiving feast requires a lot of time. 2 or 3 days of prepping the food is often the case when one person is hosting. Fondue. Does anyone know what fondue is? Yes, you get around and eat melted cheese together. Num, 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 num. But that's a little pricier because you don't typically melt mozzarella. You find some fancy cheese and pay $12 for that itsy-bitsy little block of this cheese. And you have to have the fancy fondue pot or whatever. Tempura. This is, I think, a Japanese dish, and you have fried veggies or meats or whatever, and you put them on these skewers, and you put them in the you roll them in batter, and you put them in the boiling oil, and then you take them out, and you drain them and dip them in yum, yum, yum sauce. So these can be really fun, but they require a little extra planning. Okay, so I almost never do those because I'm not yet established enough to have a fondue fountain or a tempura, whatever. So I usually stick to potluck themes. Here's just a couple. I'm going to enumerate them. Haystacks or taco salad, picnic or barbecue. Asian can be really good. Soup themes are amazing. Sandwiches, equally amazing. One of my go-to food themes is bring your favorite snack. What should I bring? The snack that you want to buy yourself, but you feel too guilty to buy for yourself. Now here, you bring it to the potluck, but any leftovers you get to take home. And many people really like that idea. They're not going to buy a big bag of dark chocolate-covered raisins for themselves, but for everybody else. Oh, wow, of course. That's a good theme. Desserts and fruit is a great theme. Ice cream and fruit. Cheese, crackers, and juice. Somehow restricting your audience's food choice makes it easier for them to decide what to bring. It's just a strange phenomenon of human nature. Say, bring whatever. Oh, I just don't know what to bring. But if you tell them this really narrow range, they'll think of something very quickly. Okay. Another favorite potluck type is what I call the foundation dish, where the host does in my case, lentil soup is often my go-to. And then I ask people to bring supporting items. Now, the supporting items don't take a lot of prep time. So they can go to the store and buy their favorite loaf of bread, or their favorite block of cheese, or their favorite thing of juice, and that's just $6, and I'm done. But I make a big pot of soup, and it's nice to have a guaranteed quality batch of calories. 50,000 calories here for everybody. No one's going to go hungry if they all bail. And the other thing is, if people don't bring much extra food, I'm okay with not letting them have that much extra food, because if y'all didn't bring anything, like, y'all going to starve, or maybe not starve, but you're going to suffer without anything more than soup. So a couple of these good foundation dishes are nacho bar, where you might have chili, cheese, and nacho chips, and everyone brings toppings. Waffles or pancakes, very inexpensive, and you have to have the griddle, but everyone can bring syrup or chopped up or their favorite this. Fondue, tempura, fruit salad. Like haystacks or taco salad, you can parcel out the menu and distribute the cost among everyone. And if you're missing strawberries in the fruit salad, it'll be okay. Finally, for the less intensive events, a crowd pleaser snack. Popcorn is universal. Chips are super easy. Harvest fruit. Now, in Michigan, we have access to many orchards, and many times, if you can get seconds on your apples, you can get a bushel for like $15, and that will just feed just so many people. So you have apples and peanut butter, and then everyone's happy. Caramel, yeah, there you go. I love chips and salsa, and then juice is a really simple crowd snack. Okay, how am I doing on time? Great. Preparation. Now, this is getting to the really important part. And I say really important because the quality of your experience as host depends on how well you do in this portion right here. So do everything possible ahead of time because you want to enjoy your own party. The serving table, the serving line, the order of dishes that you have in your control, the plasticware locations, and then I like choosing a little investment in paper and plasticware because that makes cleanup so much easier. Napkins, paper plates, silverware, a good large trash can be helpful. Many times people forget that right at the end and everyone has their plate and they're feeling embarrassed about it. Finally, seating. What kind of chairs are you going to have? Are you going to create any conversation nooks? I have seen this used to great effect. There's a little alcove right here, and so we put chair, 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 and all of a sudden, 2 people go there and 2 people come there, and they might come together to create a 4-way conversation. And if you have a little nook over there, people just find it. So some good conversation nooks are on your front porch, definitely around your table, on the back deck, or a bedroom. If you clean up the bedroom and put a handful of chairs in there, many people, especially on larger events, will want a bit of solitude. And I've seen situations where you have student A pouring her heart out to some matronly lady who is a listening ear, and that conversation would not happen if everyone else is around. So, the arrangement of the chairs is important, and I'm going to tell you a story of this Bible study bonfire that I organized in college. So I was leading this little group of people, and we're going to have an outing, and we're going to have a Bible study bonfire. So I chose a location, I made good directions, good time, everything check, check, check. And I saw a good clear place for a fire pit. And there nearby was a long fallen tree. Perfect. It was a pine tree, and all the bark had come off, so it was a clean log, none of this licheny, yuckety yuck to sit on. Perfect. So we all sat out there, and everyone sat on the front row of the log, the only row of the log. And we had worship, and we had, songs, and then I asked people to participate in a small group discussion, which often works well. But this time, it fell flat on its face. And after thoughtful contemplation, analyzing why my party was so awkward, and it was, it's because the people sitting on the log had only 2 friends to talk to. And they may or may not know them. And if I sucked this person away, then that forced the other person to have to go that direction, so there were fewer choices in group selection. And as a leader, I just got awkward for the awkwardness that I saw over there. And the awkwardness, it carried over into the rest of the event. People all left early. They came up with great excuses why they just had to go study or call their mom who was whatever. But looking back, the seat arrangement is very crucial. Okay, this chapter, portion 8, pre-party, this is the section where you put your guests at ease. Now, I read a magazine. I wanted to upgrade my style at one point, and my sister's stylist says, get a subscription to GQ, the magazine. You'll see a bunch of good style. And so in addition to seeing a bunch of good style, I saw some party throwing techniques, and one of the party throwing techniques they said is, when you throw a party, the first goal of the host is to get as much alcohol in your guests as soon as possible. They just put that right at the top. And I sort of chuckled because the temperance message is very core to the Adventist church, and so this is not exactly in line with kosher behavior for all my church friends. But there is a kernel of truth to be made aware of, because when your prefrontal cortex is active, your fight or flight state, you're all these contingency plans. What will this person think of me? What will she think of me? Oh, my goodness. And that actually is a real buzzkill when it comes to having fun at a party. And you've heard the phrase, maybe, liquid courage. If the front of your brain is too active and you just can't be yourself, people will take a drink of alcohol to just sort of settle things down. And anyway, for those of us who don't want to have alcohol feature in your party, we have extra work to do, because we still have people who are under the same social pressures. They still need some liquid courage or whatever they need to boost their problems in life, or talk to the girl, or to talk with a stranger. Public speaking is the number one fear ahead of dying. And when you're a new person in a new group, you're in the middle of the public, and you either speak and scratch your deepest fear, or you just stay silent at the edge. And I'm here to tell you that if you have a party with a bunch of people staying silent at the edge, it is no fun. So, one of the things I do is I invite a talkative friend to come early. My dad is a fabulous person. He'll just talk the paint off a barn door. A friend of mine, my landlord, and when I lived in Loma Linda, he was a lawyer, and I rented an efficiency from him, but we had the understanding that worked very well that I could use his living room and kitchen when I had people over, which was often. And he loved talking to people. So he would function as my conversation starter. And it really made a big difference. People would start talking, and then the people who wouldn't click with the conversation would find me, who was always last minute preparing food, and they would offer help. And this was great because a lot of girls offered to help. And so I would have a chance to chop, what can I do? Chop the carrots, chop the celery. And they'd get to watch me make lentil soup. And it was great. So people want to feel good. They want to meet new friends. They want to be entertained. Everyone, how do I say this? How you make people feel is an indelible, potentially life-lasting thing they will take away. If they feel awkward, like the girl who turned off her camera, well, she logged out, as soon as her face was publicized, many people will have a moment of awkwardness, they cut you off and they're done. So lots of care should be taken into how you open people up at a party. They need to feel belonging. When you're talking with someone, find out what they're good at, what they're proud of, what they can teach you. And when you engage people on that level of conversation, you have unlocked the door to a lifelong friendship. So, I don't know where this quote came from, but I like it. Be like Jesus. Mingle as one desiring their good. So when Jesus socialized, he talked with Mary of whatever, and he would ask her about whatever she had on her heart. And when she realized that Jesus really cared about her, she would never forget. So when you're trying to make conversation with a new person, ask about their hobbies and projects. Great choice of conversation. Have you gone on any trips lately? when was the last time you went overseas? Oh, you've never gone overseas. Do you like visiting national parks? And you're looking for some common ground where you can get them to tell about something that they've done and you can find them interesting. And it's really a fun game. There's a few people in college who are just sad, miserable people. And I made a note to just not be friends with them, but it was the very strong minority, like less than 1 out of 100. There were very few people who didn't open up when I asked them about interesting questions. Finally, pets are a very easy thing to talk about, and once you gain a little more trust, people can open up when you ask them about their family. And hopefully everybody has a family. Oh, let's see. Oh yeah, so here's the story that happened when I was at my landlord's place and he was letting me use his kitchen. I invited too many people who didn't know each other, and perhaps this friend gathering happened too soon after the evening meeting where everyone's mind was full of whatever. And they came, and everyone was just sitting there. And I felt it. In fact, I think a good metric for determining how extroverted someone is the number of seconds that they can withstand silence in a group before they are compelled to say something. And I was the most extroverted person in the room that day, and I felt compelled to say something. So I said some story which I thought was good, but it really went over like a lead balloon. And I thought to myself, that's it. Somehow, my subconscious, I knew intuitively that if I double down to tell another story, that would make it worse. So I found something to do in the kitchen and absented myself. And over my shoulder, I listened. And there was about 5, 8, 10 seconds of silence. And then the rest of the extroverts clocked in. And they started asking each other's questions. And as I think about that story, I really think that my awkward story that got everyone somewhat on the same page, I actually think that served as a bit of a social lubricant. Because the stories that happened afterwards, they were good. And there was many of them. It wasn't just one group. It was like 4. And I could tell there were chuckles happening. And I said, you know what? I took one for the team. I told the awkward story, and they're all now happily talking. So there you go. Now, here's another interesting situation that happened. I was invited over to another friend's house. Not my party. And everyone is there. Many married couples. I am not married, and so I was a little out, but I could tell there's the social tension, like, nothing's coming to their mind, and these extroverts were trying to fill the void because their tick, timer just ting, but they don't have anything to say. So after just a few moments of that, I asked, has anyone had a good accident story that you'd like to tell? I have a great one, and I told the story about a car accident that I went on, and I don't remember which it was, but after that, someone's like, oh, I've got a good accident story. And this guy and then after he told, another guy like, oh, I got a good accident story. And the guy started like doing the chest thumping, my accident's bigger than your accident. It worked like a charm. I went to a singles retreat not that long ago, and I used this same conversational ploy again. And after the afterglow, which was miserable, people sat at the tables awkwardly not talking. And I said, why don't we all tell a story about an accident or a first day in the hospital? I'll go first. And I just told my story, and what do you know? Other people, once primed, and when I say primed, I mean you've told a story, their mind is thinking about it, that will remind them of a similar story in maybe a third of your people. And if those third is inclined to be extrovert, they will happily arise to the occasion and keep that awkward silence from just, overcoming the group. So that is a great let's get everyone to talk story, but you've got to have a story in your back pocket. If you've prepared ahead of time, this is a trick that works. This is a gimmick that works really well. Who am I? You can come up with a theme like Bible characters or people from history or just any name that comes to mind, but you need a list. And if you have an early guest, you can get the early guest to write these lists on, write each name on a small note card, or better yet, half a note card. The larger it is, it gets kind of floppy. And then you get some packing tape or scotch tape, and you, when more guests arrive, and you decide that you want to have the first thing, and maybe food is almost ready, then you explain, after getting people's attention, that we're going to be playing Who Am I? And you're going to have a secret name on your back that you're supposed to guess by asking yes or no questions. And then you ask the person who's written the name out to find one or two people to help them, and they tape the names onto the guests that come up. Now, this takes 5 to 10, 15 minutes, just depending. And one thing that works really, really well is you say, we're going to have the blessing for the food, and once your name has been guessed, you may grab a plate and take some food. And this serves several problems. One, it gives people a concrete reason to talk. Oh, is my person a man? No, it's a woman. Okay, is my person from history? Oh no, they're living right now. And people will engage in the little gimmick of a game. Second, many people don't want to be the first to go through line. But if you're the first person to get your name, and there's no one else in line, oh, look at those watermelon pieces. I think I'll just have some, and they can go through line, and soon more people will come. So it time releases the people into the line. And it worked really good at a certain party that I had and wanted to share. Sundown worship can serve as a great gimmick. And when I say gimmick, I don't mean any disrespect. A gimmick is some concrete activity that gets people into the party. So there's this awkward beginning phase, and after the awkward beginning phase, you have the critical mass. Then you decide to have sundown worship. You have a few songs. You have a prayer. You have the whatever. And then afterwards, you close, and somehow transitioning from chit-chat to a group event, back to maybe food or maybe another just open time for chit-chat, that movement really helps pace the party. If people just hang out and just mill around, the party doesn't have the flow, doesn't have the poignancy, because sometimes people get stuck in a conversation and it's not going so well. But when you have an excuse to end it and change things up, good things happen. Other gimmicks are a puzzle table. Remove the ring. Oh, maybe a 300-piece jigsaw puzzle. Or a short movie. I don't recommend a long movie because that could be the whole theme of the party, but if you have a short little, like a 10-minute whatever, that can be very effective at captivating attention, and then it gives people a conversation piece afterwards. Another theme for a great, unique party is you ask a half dozen of your friends to choose beforehand, we're talking a week beforehand, a TED Talk. And then you give people a chance to show 2 or 3 TED Talks and then have a little break. And after a half an hour break, then you show the next 3 TED Talks. And now people have all sorts of ideas to talk about. So that's a great way of really getting people's minds engaged. But you need to be very selective on who you trust to choose some of these TED Talks. But it's great for conversation. Finally, there's a couple other themes like make applesauce. Everyone knows if you're going to make applesauce, that's why you're there. In college, I had a climbing wall party, and I invited all my friends. And one girl, she says, I don't climb, and I know I'm not good at construction. I says, that's okay. We need someone for the guys to talk to when they get a break from their climbing. And that was another just highlight of my college experience, because we were banging these T-nuts onto the back of a sheet of plywood. So a lot of drilling, a lot of banging, and that happened in the garage. And then there was food, there were some games, and it had a really nice mix where people just enjoyed watching the construction or playing the games or helping cook. Okay, I feel we're wrapping up to the end. Group story time, I already talked about that. Finally, a group game. Oh, I love games. I like playing them. I like watching people play them. And you can actually learn a lot about people when you're playing games. And sometimes you kind of wish you didn't know that. Like anyone cheats, like, oh my goodness, if they cheated on the game, maybe they'll cheat in real life. So, but most of the time, I'm talking about 98, 99% of the time, the things that I learn about my friends are overwhelmingly positive. And I see games as an excellent way to engage friends. Almost as good as heart-to-heart conversation. But let's be honest, not everyone is ready to just snap into heart-to-heart conversation. And time after time, that lawyer friend who I rented from in California, we would have the best conversations after playing 1 or 2 rounds of a certain game, or any game. And then the game would go in the background, our minds were now synchronized, and so the whatever happened, and we would just have these deep conversations about the church, about life, and it's amazing how that sort of helps prime the pump for conversation building, which is community building, and this is the reason why we do these parties. So, I'm going to talk about 3 games that I think are very good candidates for a party. And there's many, many, many. But the Great Dalmuti is a game that you can play. You can play it with playing cards, but if you buy the deck, the Great Dalmuti, it's a better distribution of cards. And the game is great because it is both simple and complex. No one likes tic-tac-toe. It's simple, but it's not complex. And this game, Great Dalmuti, is a fabulous crowd mixer. So here's how you work. If you have 6 to 15 people, you get around the table. You deal out all the cards. The cards have numbers on them. And it is, everyone plays a card when you go around. And once no one else can play a card, because there's a ranking, and you get to the highest card, and then no one else plays, then whoever played the highest card can start again, playing a lower card, and everyone gets to play higher and higher and higher. Whoever finishes the game first is, they're not quite the winner, but yeah, they come out number 1. But you keep playing, and then the person who finishes second, the person who finishes third, and you keep track of the rank that you leave the game. Then, after the round is over, which is about 8 minutes, everyone takes a new seat based on their rank. And this is great for teenagers because this guy wants to sit by this girl, but he just can't do that on his own. But now, the game shuffled it so that he's right there, or maybe across from this person. And so it's a great crowd mixer. Anyone can hop in the next round, which is at most 8 minutes away. And there's hats that you can wear to add pizzazz to it. There's definitely strategy. I'm not going to tell you the whole game right now, but there's definitely strategy. And the people who pick it up earlier, they'll rank better. But it's okay. We're playing to have fun. And when you as the host, you emphasize the enjoyment, not the winner, you're going to have the best game night. So that's the Great Dalmuti. Next game, Telephone Pictionary. If there's 10 people, you need to sit around a table and have 10 stacks of paper. I recommend 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper ripped in quarters or cut in quarters. And everyone gets, if n people are playing, there are n stacks of n sheets of paper. So if there's 10 people playing, you have 10 stacks of 10 sheets of paper. And the purpose of this is that everyone has a chance to draw or write on every stack. So if you have 12 people, you'll need a much larger number of papers, and it happens to go up as n squared, all you math nerds. And the thing that you do is everyone starts off with a phrase or story or just something simple-ish, but not too simple. If you just put a tree, very boring. If you put the dog treed the cat after he stole his toy. Now that's a little more interesting. You have cause to effect, and so you place these stories on, everyone has a chance to write their sentence, and you want to number the sheets of paper, and then once everyone's done the first step, everyone passes it to the left. And then from the right, you grab the stack from them, and you see, oh, the dog, the tree, cat, whatever. And you take that, and you take the piece of paper, and after you've read it, you put it on the back, and then you draw that. And people will say, oh, I'm a terrible artist, I'm so bad. And then you say, then we really want you to play the game. Because the game is no fun if everyone's really good. We want some people to stir the pot. And you go between sentence to picture to sentence to picture. And this is a lot like Pictionary because you're drawing and writing and drawing. It's a lot like Telephone, the game where you whisper the same phrase around the table because the phrase evolves. It changes, it morphs. And the funny part about this, if you have someone who's studying business, it might go one direction. Someone who's studying veterinary science, it might go another direction. And people tend to tweak it wherever their mind is. And it makes for fun talk. So the creation of all these stacks of paper is just half the game, but it is only a third of the fun. Afterwards, you show everyone the stack of paper that has now come back to you after all 10 pages have been used, and you show everyone, okay, I talked about the cat and chase the dog up the tree, and then you go one by one and show the picture. Oh, okay, and then you saw how that picture was interpreted, which is probably not as you wrote it, and that is by far the fun, laughable part of the game. That's an excellent game. 15 is kind of the upper bound. 15 squared is 225. 10 squared is 100. So you can see how it's going to take longer to play the bigger game. Finally, the last game, and then my presentation is done. And I planned to have everyone play it, and I prepared ahead of time. I cut out sheets of paper, and then I left the sheets of paper. But I'll tell you about how the game works, and you can play it at your next event. This game works better with larger crowds, 6 to 30, 40. You can play it with quite a large number. And you divide the group in two teams. You'll want to do every other person. If there's an odd number of people, you can have them either be on both teams or sit out and wait till another person comes, then they can both be on a team. So, trifecta death. Oh, sounds so dangerous, ominous. Everyone is given slips of paper. They write down phrases that are interesting. And I found the phrase that you use to encourage people, what do I write? It does much to color the type of the game. For instance, you could say, crocheting a quilt. Or you could say lead underwear. Both of those are valid phrases, but they very different types of. So if you've seen Superman, you might know that Superman can't see through lead. And so anyway, so once you get everyone to put the folded pieces of paper, so you fold them in half, fold them again, so that you can't by default see what's on them. And you put them into a colander or a box or a hat, and then you take turns. And this is a very important part of the game. You can play with a 30-second time limit or a 45-second time limit. I don't recommend much longer. And the game, if someone gets awkward, a minute is just a long time to be awkward. 30 seconds isn't that much time, but you also can't get much progress in the game. So it's really sad when someone was making good progress, but they just couldn't quite get one done. So I feel like 45 seconds is a nice balance. But so the first round, the first trifecta, is catchphrase rules, meaning the goal is to get your team to guess the phrase, and the only thing you can't say is any of the words written on there, with perhaps the exception of the or our little prepositions, or any of the forms. If she wrote child, I couldn't say children. So simple. And the more you get right in your 30-second block of time, the more your team scores. And keeping score is good, but if it's a lopsided, you kind of want to minimize that. So some people don't like to play. Oh, no, I'll just watch. And then you can invite them to be the scorekeeper. And they'll usually be happy to mark down the score. Once you exhaust the names, you do the second trifecta, which is acting. No words. But people have already heard everything on the list. So they're not going from scratch. I'm crocheting or knitting, like quilt, and you might have to break the word up into parts. Something like saying 2 words, that can really help people. A few simple cues will help. The third trifecta is 1 word. You've now gone through the whole list twice, and you have only 1 word. So maybe knitting and crocheting a quilt is so what would I say? Yarn. And because they've heard it twice, maybe people would think that yarn was a sufficiently good clue, and someone on my team would remember, knitting and whatever quilt. So this is a really good game. It engages people's mind, engages people's good. It's a great expandable game, very easy, low props. And that's all I have. So thank you so much for being a fabulous audience. Any questions? And could I get someone to take the mic around as we field the questions? If there's no questions, my feelings will not be hurt. I waxed just a little bit long.
Any questions?
Exciting speaker.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
Melody!
It's just personal. What was the best party that one of the top
great top parties?
Like what was one of the best parties that you've ever been?
Sure.
Whether it was you or somebody else that did it.
So I think I've told the story of the 2 that were my favorite. The rock climbing wall party was one of the parties that did well, and I also chose 3 people. My landlord to be in charge of getting the climbing construction part. That many guys like drilling through plywood and banging on T-nuts, and then starting to climb once we finally had that up. And then we had his girlfriend, fiance, wife, I'm not sure. And she took care of the food, and I empowered each of these people. I said, listen, you get as much help as you need. That is key to throwing a gangbuster party, because you want to rely on other people's social network. And when they invite friends to be part of the in-group chopping onions or banging on T-nuts or whatever it is, feel the bond. And then the third one was a friend of mine, and I asked him to lead a game in the living room. And I said, I just want an activity that non-construction people, non-whatever can play. And so I said, if you want to ask 2 people to lead 2 games, anything you want to do. So the key is to getting delegates to help you, and then asking them to empower their friends to get more delegates. And those are some of the things that did really well. The second party, where I did the Christmas party, and that went really well, where I got those 3 people, the Chris, who doesn't know anything about anything, that was the other party that was just really good.
Any other questions? This is working over the thing. You just probably don't hear it here. Okay.
Well, you can talk to me afterwards. I guess that's it for
Thank
Martha.
you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for coming. We have some popcorn we're going to pop real quick. You put a little nutritional yeast on it, spray it with a little avocado oil or something like
One
that.
other thing, Dwayne and I and anyone else who wants to stay are going to play games right after this. So if you want,
Yeah.
you can welcome to talk. You're welcome to leave. You're welcome to stay and play games. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
And Kathy made